Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this virtual Executive Women's Forum. I'm Rebecca Borman. I'm the president of Women in High Tech, and I'm the managing director of sales and services at Bell Technologics, an IT managed services firm here in Indianapolis. I'm super excited that this is our first virtual Executive Women's Forum that we're putting on in collaboration with Executive Women in Finance in Indiana. I'm so excited about these two groups coming together to talk to us today about STEM and construction and how it could be a perfect career and all the opportunities. So thank you so much for doing this event with us, ladies. We appreciate it. And I'd also like to thank all of our esteemed panelists in the construction industry that are here to share their knowledge and expertise and time with us. Thank you very much. We're glad to have you, and we're looking forward to what you're going to share with us because we know we're going to learn a lot today. For those of you who aren't as familiar with Women in High Tech, or maybe this is your first event, I just want to tell you a little bit about who we are. So Women in High Tech exists to change the landscape of women represented in STEM to be equally inclusive to all. So our organization started in 1999 with scientists from Eli Lilly, Joyce Gustafson, and an academic from Indiana University, Georgia Miller. And what they found is that there were very few women working in high-tech fields. So they started this organization. And so for the last 2+ decades now, Women in High Tech has been blazing the way to support, advance, recognize, and help women and girls pursue and be recognized in the STEM fields. I do want to share that Women in High Tech just started our new board term July 1st of this month. So I want to welcome all of our 2021 board members, especially our 3 new board members, Crystal Morton, Linda Calvin, who you get to meet here in a moment, and Ben Phillips. So I want to thank this board. Our organization is run by all volunteer working board. And so thank you all for giving your time, talents, and treasures to support the women in STEM in our Indiana community. Just a couple other things I want to share with you. Those of you may know that our Leading Light Awards is coming up October 1st of this year. And this year we have a scholarship called In This Together, and it's our first ever member-funded scholarship. So if you'd like to contribute to that to help a woman pursuing a STEM degree at an Indiana school, there's still time to contribute. And I also did want to share with you that Women in High Tech has just announced that we're starting a virtual book club. And that first virtual book meeting is going to be September 22nd. So if you'd like to join us for that, please take a look at our website and register to attend. We'll have some other virtual events coming up this year, so keep an eye on your emails, and we'll look forward to seeing you there also. So with that, I'd like to introduce Erin Eberly, who's going to tell you a little bit about Executive Women in Finance here in Indiana. And thanks again for collaborating with us.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's exciting to be here. Thanks to Women in High Tech for partnering with us. I echo your sentiments exactly on the thanks to this team who pulled this together. I know it takes a lot logistically to pull off such an esteemed panel, and thank you to panelists for being here today, and one of our own, our Vice President Melanie King. I'm glad that she's on the panel today. So I'll do similar to what Rebecca did. I'll introduce myself for those who don't know me. I'm Erin Eberly. I'm a partner at Katz Pepper & Miller, and this is my first term as president of Executive Women in Finance. But what a whirlwind this year has been. I mean, a good way to start off and learn about resiliency, but we're excited for what's left to come here this year. For those who aren't familiar with Executive Women in Finance, like Women in High Tech, we are a professional women's association. Our mission is to serve as a catalyst for our members to achieve enhanced business success and for their professional growth. We want them to become leaders and decision makers, be able to establish a diverse network within the financial business community here in Indiana. So our member base is primarily comprised of a wide range of female professionals who have extensive experience in the finance industry, which includes CFOs, treasurers, commercial and investment bankers, attorneys, CPAs, venture capitalists, and entrepreneurs even, who represent both national and local organizations. So we're excited to be here and get to work with you all. I would like to give some special recognition to our sponsors, to whom all of this would not be possible to pull these events off. We're thankful for their support in quite a year to continue to be sponsors of these types of things. So we're very thankful for them. One item for upcoming Executive Women in Finance event, we are going to be proceeding with our first in-person event since all of this happened. Now, obviously, this whole situation is fluid and changing, but as of today, we are moving forward with our August 20th event when we're partnering with the Indianapolis chapter of FEI, and we're going to hear from one of racing's great, Sarah Fisher. So I wanted to let you know too that we are taking extensive measures to ensure the safety of our members and our guests for this event. So there will be a number of protocols in place, and you can learn more about all of these guidelines, etc., on our website. So we'll hope you'll join us for that. As well as we have a packed remainder of the year in terms of events, both virtual and otherwise. So check out our webpage, and emails will be forthcoming for those events. With that, again, great to be here with you. And Linda, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Rebecca and Aaron, for getting us started. And we have just a couple more introductions and housekeeping items to take care of that before we move forward with the actual panel discussion. So first, I'd like to introduce Linda Calvin. Linda is our new board member to Women in High Tech and will be the Executive Women in Finance, or Executive Forum, Women Executive Forum Director for our board. And Linda is the statewide vice president of the School of IT at Ivy Tech. And in her role, she partners with faculty to ensure the tech curriculum meets industry standards. She collaborates with industry partners and community organizations to promote the school and help with recruitment for students, for internships and hire. And then she works with stakeholders and legislature to promote Ivy Tech to the private sector and helps advance Ivy Tech across the scientific community. But in addition to her successful career in the private sector, she helps advance technology within the scientific community. Most notably, Linda was at Dow Agro. She's an attorney. She applied her skills in social media and regulatory environment. And Linda's passionate about mentoring our youth and plays a role in leading organizations such as Gifted Gown. She's part of Pass the Torch for Women, Starfish Initiative, and she's a strong advocate for actionable diversity strategies and regularly speaks on panels for equity in tech and for women and people of color. So we're fortunate to have her talent on our Women in High Tech board. So with that, I'll let Linda say hello and tell everyone about her vision for our forums going forward.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Linda, for that introduction. I'm excited to be here and to be a part of Women in High Tech. I joined Women in High Tech several years ago, and then I let my membership lapse. And I had lunch with Darcy Lee several years ago, and I was lamenting the lack of women and the visibility of women in tech. And in her nicest way possible, she said, "So what are you doing about it?" So, you know, that's the thing. I decided to take my wagon and go home, doggone it, because I was mad about it. And then she said, well, what are you doing about it? And I thought, well, touche. And I rejoined Women in High Tech after that and got back and involved in the community. So, I never thought that my journey then and talking with Darcy would lead me here now. So I always have to give kudos to Darcy for lighting a fire under Linda Calvin and to get me to stop pouting. And so I don't pout anymore. Super passionate about seeing the visibility of women and minorities in tech as my job. And so but for women in high tech, what my vision is through Executive Women's Forum is to continue that vision of diversity in the programming that's offered from a professional perspective and enable and allow women and members in the organization to really embrace this time that we're living in and being a woman of STEM, but also providing programming that empowers you to take that torch, run with it, but also serve as a voice to our legislature. We need a seat at that table as women in STEM to influence the decisions that they're making. And so my goal is to create programming and then invite everyone on the governor's workforce cabinet to attend, and DWD and all of them to attend Women in High Tech and say, wow, we need to be involved with these ladies and their allies to influence and flip the script on STEM in our state. So thanks again for having me, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Linda. We're excited to have you on board for sure. And so one last housekeeping item, we've left time at the end of our panel discussion for some Q&A, and Shalise Fleming is going to lead us through that portion of our webinar. And Shalise is a CPA and a manager of tax and outsourced engineer accounting services at Greenwald CPAs. She's a graduate of Indiana State. She started her accounting career in nonprofit sector, transitioned into tax. And she works across Greenwald's entire client base. She's active in the Indiana CPA Society, and she also leverages her accounting skills to serve on not-for-profit, including Executive Women in Finance, but several other nonprofits actually relating to equestrian eventing. She loves horses. She's an accomplished rider, and you can frequently find her at the barn riding and training. So thank you, Shalise, for handling our Q&A at the end of the session. All right, so that takes us into our actual panel discussion. So I've led Women in High Tech's Executive Women's Forum programming for the past 2 years, and my strategy has focused on 2 areas: helping women develop better confidence and learn how to stand up for themselves, and also to help women understand and gain an appreciation for just how flexible their STEM skills are and how broadly their skills can be leveraged. And so we talked early on about nonprofit work. We talked about supply chain, but something near and dear to my heart, design and construction, came to mind. So, and I know and had the privilege to work with some really great construction leaders as represented here on the panel. And I really wanted you to hear from them on why women are ideal fit in the design and construction industry. So I've had the pleasure of preparing this webinar jointly with Executive Women in the Finance team. So we're a group of like-minded women that are working to support STEM professionals through networking and career development, mentoring the STEM talent pipeline. So me, Nikki Reddick, and Shalise have been a great team, and I appreciate their talent and what we've been able to jointly prepare for you today. So I hope you also find it educational and a good learning opportunity. So I'm a builder creator at heart. I love the excitement of seeing paper plans come to life, whether that's with steel and concrete. or whether that's with hot glue and craft materials. I just like to build and create things. And so I focused the larger part of my career on design and construction because that industry provides the opportunity to innovate and create. So it also gives you a chance for problem solving and analysis and project management, scientific thinking. So I hope you gain that insight into how STEM skills fit within the needs of today's construction projects, and you'll actually hear case studies and get information from accomplished leaders within the construction industry who are designing and building at their companies where that's a core business strategy. So these talented professionals have supplied their STEM skills to lead construction-focused organizations or lead teams, projects, business processes. So it's a great opportunity to really learn how broadly your STEM skills can be leveraged, because infrastructure projects are booming across the United States, and thankfully so. We have a lot of roads and bridges and underground pipelines that need repaired. And this industry is really ripe for diversification, and women STEM professionals are really a great fit. And as reported by the National Association of Women in Construction, women only make up 9.9% of construction industry professionals. So there's a lot of great opportunity for women to step in. We hope through the panel discussion that we leave you with a few takeaways. We want you to understand what gets in the way of women stepping into the industry and how leaders in the industry are trying to change that paradigm. I also hope you gain an understanding of how careers in this industry are fun, challenging, and where the unique perspective of a woman can bring value into the field. And finally, how leaders in the construction industry are working to fill the talent pipeline with more women professionals. So I'm excited that you'll get to hear from these professionals and the panelists that we have today. And I really appreciate that they've given us their time and their energy to share their experiences with us. So with that, I'll get started, and I'm going to ask each panel member to give us a brief summary of who you are and what your background is, and what led you into the construction industry. So we'll start in alphabetical order today. So we'll start with Jeannie.
Hello, I'm Jeannie Fuqua. I'm the president and majority owner of C.H. Barnett Construction Company. My company basically provides transportation, logistics for the construction industry. I specialize in the delivery of aggregate materials and also debris removal from job sites. C.H. Barnett was started in 2007 as a joint venture partnership with Miller Pipeline Corporation. Prior to starting my company, I spent 25 years as a global insurance broker, and I specialized in the placement of property and casualty programs of a complex nature. And believe it or not, Miller Pipeline just happened to be one of my clients. So as we get through this webinar, I will really emphasize networking, because if it weren't for my prior background, I would have never had the opportunities that I have with my current business partners. And just as a cadre and leaving a legacy to my daughters, I named the company after my maternal grandfather, C.H. Barnett.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeannie. Great story. So Sarah, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Hempstead. I'm the CEO of Schmidt Associates. I'm an architect by training, and we are architects and engineers. So we've got interior designers, we've got mechanical, electrical, plumbing, tech engineers. We're located in Indianapolis. There's about 100 of us here. And January of this year, we opened our second office in Louisville. which timing is questionable at this point because it didn't all roll out quite the way that we had planned since we shut down that office and our office here in March. But it's going to be great. It's going to be great. We do a ton of work in education, everything from advanced research labs down to the little bittiest ones. We do a ton of work in medical, and then we do a lot of work with community profit organizations. So those are your libraries and your museums and your not-for-profits. That's kind of where we live. It's a lot of fun every day.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And Mr. Kenny, our male ally who's able to join us today.
Thank you, Linda. I'm Phil Kenny, president of F.A. Wilhelm Construction Company. Our business was started in 1923 by my grandfather, Francis Wilhelm, right here in Indianapolis on the southeast side of town. And we do general construction and construction management work throughout the Midwest. But the bulk of our work is right here in Indiana. And we've actually worked for Linda through the years. I think our first project with her was 25 or 30 years ago. So I'm aging ourselves here. Personally, I've lived in Indianapolis my whole life, born and raised here, went to Purdue University, got an engineering degree, and finally got out in 1986 and went to work here at Wilhelm, and I've never worked anywhere else. And my wife, Colleen, and I have raised 5 children, and we still live in Irvington here in Indianapolis. And we've got 2 grandchildren and another one due any day. And I will tell you, Linda, being raised with 4 sisters, a headstrong mother, raising 3 daughters, and having a headstrong wife, I feel right at home here on the panel.
Well, thank you, Phil. And actually, I've learned a lot from Phil over the years, and he's been a really strong, I'm going to say, mentor in the world of design and construction for me. And it's funny, Jeannie said networking, and I wouldn't be at ECC if it weren't for Jeannie. I told Jeannie that I wanted to change and I was looking for something completely different. And Jeannie hooked me up with the right recruiter, and here I sit. So networking is certainly very important. So let's turn to Melanie. Melanie, can you give us an introduction?
Yeah, hi, I'm Melanie King, and I am the CFO for the Hagerman Group. The Hagerman Group was started 112 years ago as a masonry contractor out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. We have we've kept our masonry subcontracting entity, but also moved into general contracting for commercial clients. We do most of our work in education, healthcare, and industrial clients. As CFO, I focus on all the financial reporting for the organization, and I also maintain relationships with outside vendors such as bankers, auditors, tax consultants, our insurance broker, as well as our IT managed service provider. Before I was at the Hagerman Group, I was controller for 12 years at an electrical and mechanical contractor here in Indianapolis, and also spent 5 years in public accounting. I'm a graduate of Purdue University and an active CPA. I also, in my spare time, serve on the board for the Indiana CPA Society, as well as vice president for Executive Women in Finance. I'm so excited to be here and be able to share some of the experiences I've had for the last 20 years in construction.
Thank you, Melanie. And then last but not least, Brittany Turner. So Brittany, introduce yourself.
Brittany Turner, CFO of Wilhelm Construction. So I'm from Rockford, Indiana, a small town in southwest Indiana, right on the Ohio River. I grew up kind of intrigued always by numbers and ultimately decided I wanted to pursue accounting and finance. So I received both my undergraduate degree and MBA from Indiana University. So sorry, Melanie and Phil. But I've been at Wilhelm for nearly 4 years now. I actually started as controller at Wilhelm and I was promoted to CFO nearly 2 years ago. So prior to working Wilhelm, I started my career in public accounting as well. And then I went into corporate finance, performing more FP&A type analysis. And then here at Wilhelm, I actually oversee the accounting department, the human resource department, as well as the risk management department. So for me, I really enjoy working in an industry where the results are tangible. I enjoy driving around the city and pointing out projects that Wilhelm has worked on. I really find a sense of accomplishment in that.
Thank you, Brittany. That's great. So as you can see, this is an awesome representation of the leadership in the construction community in Indiana. So I know our attendees are going to leave running for jobs in construction. So let's get started with questions. So we'll start with, so Jeannie, women currently make up a small percentage of those working in construction. And as someone who's worked in and then started your own construction company, from your perspective, what keeps women away and how have you transcended that?
I think a lot of women don't really focus on the construction industry as building a long career. When I started my career right out of college, I'm in Akron, Ohio. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So my path was a little bit different than most. When I got into the insurance industry, it gave me the opportunity to really work with a lot of different clients from very diverse fields. And one of the things that I really found interesting was my construction clients, because they dealt with everything from transportation to HR to how to build an IT system to handle invoicing and just everything that most people would not even think of. And at the time, I gravitated towards Miller Pipeline because they were a small family-owned business. Their revenues every year were increasing. They were founded in 1953, and when I met them, it was like 1988. And I just really liked their whole attitude on how you can have a career with one company, if you so desire, for your entire lifetime. And so with that being said, I just went above and beyond on the risk management side, helping them build, very diverse and not so much complex programs for them at the time. They are now, because they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, but just how I could impact their bottom line. So when you look at a career in the construction industry, I would say look at the longevity, look at how you can grow within the field and within the company that you might be working for. And because it's so fast paced in these times, you can really spread your wings and grow. And so that's what I was able to do. When they approached me about starting my own company, from the transportation and logistics side of it, it was because they didn't have a consistent program or company to deal with in all the 38 states that they were domiciled in. So when they asked me, they said, our business, you've worked with us for almost 25 years. Why don't you try this out? And I said, sure. It was very challenging. I really didn't know what I was getting myself into at the time, but with the support of my business partners and because of the network I had developed over the years, I was able to launch CH Barnett. And here I am 13 years later, loving what I do.
Well, thank you, Jeannie. That's wonderful. That's great. And so, Phil, from a man's viewpoint, why do you think women shy away from entering the field? And why do you think a diverse workforce is needed? What skills do women have that you find beneficial?
I think it's a case of that they haven't shied away from our industry. I think our industry, including me, have done a poor job of educating women on opportunities. And sure, construction's about swinging a hammer, installing piping and installing conduit, but those are key, and there are women that do that. But there's a lot of other parts of our industry that need women for accounting, estimating, pre-construction, marketing, IT, business development, risk management. All those things are key parts of our industry. So it's more than just what happens out in the field. And I think that some of the things that have, and somebody like Brittany has really changed and made our company better. I think there for a while, and this is all true, for a while, about a 10-year stretch, all we did was hire Purdue people, Purdue graduates. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're great people, but I could see our whole company, that point of view is nothing. It was all very, all the same. The decisions, the way we did things. And I could just tell we needed to diversify those thoughts. And we then branched out to other schools and other places to hire from. So that's the diversification, and especially with women. Some of the one trait I think that women really bring to that I've learned through interaction with Brittany and others is the attention to detail. And that's really focused in estimating or accounting is something that I really think where women prosper is in those parts of our industry.
Oh, great. Yeah, great pointing that out. Yes, attention to detail. Because I've noticed that too, just maybe a little higher level of attention to detail. I tell that to my husband every day. Clean the microwave, but yes, that's really good. And so, Sarah, you lead an organization that does the front end of design work that many construction projects need. Do you find it easier to recruit women into design and architectural work, or do you find the same dynamics at play?
Yeah, architecture is a pretty easy sell if you can introduce women to it at a young enough age. Actually, the creative process is pretty fun. And now the universe is changing. When I went to architecture school, it was about 1 in 4 women to men, and now it's about 50-50. Where we see the fall off right now, the strange outcome that's happening is getting women licensed and practicing. We still have way more men getting licensed and practicing as engineers, getting licensed and practicing as architects. So we do still have some struggle taking these great educational outcomes and transitioning them into practicing architects and engineers. And so we're working really hard in the profession to allow for the kind of flexibility that lets that happen for more women, particularly for women with families.
Well, thank you for that, Sarah. And I think, you've all spoke to the fact that these roles are very challenging, and they offer a lot of unique, complex decision making and problem analysis. And I don't know that everyone understands the dynamics at play when you're building a $3 million building in downtown Indianapolis and all the types of issues that you have to deal with. So I also like that you also mentioned the need for diversity of thought, diversity of perspective, diversity of culture and backgrounds. I've worked on a global basis, and have had global teams made people in Europe and Asia and the United States. And by far the best outcomes are when we've had a diverse team of individuals focused on project execution. So I want to switch gears now and hear some specific examples of the type of work available. And so I want to turn to Melanie and Brittany. So did you have any preconceived ideas on what it would be like to work at a construction company? And were you pleasantly surprised? Melanie, can we start with you?
Well, I was fortunate enough through my public accounting experience to see construction companies from that perspective. They were my clients. And when I had an opportunity to work for my clients after about 5 years of public accounting, I kind of jumped at it because it's a unique way of accounting, and I was getting pretty good at it, and I had those relationships. So for me, there weren't a lot of surprises, but from my perspective, I think what would surprise people about construction companies is that innovation is really important to us. Specifically here at the Hagerman Group, we're always looking at what we can do better. And technology is very much playing a role in making sure that we're more efficient. We have been working on for a number of years being more efficient, being remote workplace, so that we're in the job trailers or at remote locations. It's not going to be disruptive, and we're still going to be building our building the most efficient way that we can. But we look at things like innovation and safety. Is there technology we can use or equipment that we can use to reduce injuries or get safety alerts out there to our people much more quickly? We've spent a lot of time and invested a lot of money in our Hagerman Institute, which is a training arm for us to make sure that our people are continuously learning and they're getting the training that they need. We've done things like Six Sigma training, Dale Carnegie leadership courses, and time management skills. So we spend a lot of time doing that, as well as in the school systems with trying to promote the trades and get kids into interested in working for bricklayers or concrete finishers or any of the other trades that are out there. So I think if there's a preconceived notion of a construction company having a mindset of that's the way we've always done it, I can tell you that we're definitely focused on improving, innovating, and trying to find better ways to do things.
Yeah, that's a great perspective, because things like Lean Six Sigma and studying statistical data to know lessons learned analysis is all really critical when you're involved in design and construction. And I don't know, once again, I don't know that people understand the totality of the types of issues that that you all are dealing with and working through when you're doing a big project. So Brittany, can you give us your perspective?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I didn't get the same perspective when I was in public accounting. I spent most of my time working on manufacturing industries, so I was kind of new to the construction industry. So I think you naturally always try to envision what a company will be like before you start. When you think of male-dominated industries, construction is maybe the first that comes to mind. If it's not the first, it is certainly high on the list. So for me personally, that wasn't a deterrent at all. I really kind of took that as a challenge to prove myself in an environment where I didn't necessarily look like a company leader that they were used to. But for me, as far as preconceived ideas, really thought Wilhelm would be a group of mostly hardworking, blue-collar individuals. But I also assumed it would be primarily a male-driven culture. So the fear with that is always would there be any lack of respect given to a female leader? I had experienced that in a past company, unfortunately, so that's something that's always top of mind for me. So before actually accepting a job at Wilhelm, I really thought through a lot of questions that address that notion. Will I be able to develop relationships with the operations team? Will I have the full support of my managers within the accounting department? I got a great impression of the 3 individuals that ultimately interviewed me, and I felt like I had their support. But you guys know how interviews go. You're limited to a few hours, and the majority of the questions are being addressed to you. So I can say, fast forward 4 years later, I continue to be pleasantly surprised. The level of respect given to truly the entire accounting department, which is actually predominantly female, not just me, from top to down, from the primarily male PM superintendents, is frankly unlike any other company I've worked with, and that's through lots of consulting back in my public accounting days. Just a really strong team dynamic where every individual realizes and respects the strengths of others. It's never operations versus overhead. It's, there's just that mutual team respect. Even as I've stepped into the CFO role, there were plenty of outside bankers, insurance people that tried to go directly to Phil. There still are. However, he's always done a great job of redirecting them to me directly and then supporting me in this role. So I think the respect factor was something that I was pleasantly surprised by, and that's given across the entire organization at Wilhelm.
Well, that's a great testimonial. We all need to run and work for Wilhelm. That's great to hear, Brittany. So back to Melanie and Brittany again. Do you have an example where you feel like your unique perspective as a woman positively impacted a project you were on that was mostly dominated by a male team? Melanie?
Oh, from my perspective, I am the only female executive. So when we have our strategic meetings or our monthly meetings, it's an ongoing project, right? To work with 4 other executives that are all male. And I would echo what Brittany just said about respect. And I've gained their respect, and I continue to earn their respect. And they've been very, very open to me being on that team. But really, my perspective as a woman, when we're talking about strategy from that 30,000 foot view, and we're looking at moving the company forward, I feel like I have a certain responsibility because of my perspective, and maybe because I can relate to the challenges that our employees face a little bit more than they do. You know, I feel like I need to be that voice and make sure that we're looking at our entire organization. So whether it's a male, female issue, is it a multi-generational issue, maybe even an ethnic issue and a diversity issue, I feel like my voice in questioning and challenging the group, just to make sure that we're thinking about the whole organization and not just specific groups. So I think that's where my perspective as a woman can really help, because I've been there. I lived through it. I'm a working mom, and you know, as my career, you know, sometimes it was hard, sometimes it was easy, but I feel like I can voice those experiences and make sure that we use that to make our organization better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. How do you view that, Brittany?
No, much of the same as Melanie. I actually sat and I really struggled through this question because I ultimately don't think I have a typical answer.
Mm-hmm.
I see myself as certainly offering a unique perspective at Wilhelm, but I couldn't just think of a good example in which I could tie my unique perspective back to my gender. So I guess I just didn't really like the idea of being defined by my gender as what gives me a unique perspective. So when I think about that way, I just kind of felt like I was the token female on the executive team. So I think, in my opinion, my unique perspective comes from how I was raised, my schooling, my family, my past work experience, what I read. So I find it almost insensitive to somehow state that I have something different to offer just because of my gender. I know we talked a little bit about attention to detail earlier. I can attest that the male individual that sat in my role before me had impeccable attention to detail, probably better than myself. So I don't want to insult anyone based on just a gender stereotype. So I think certainly women are predisposed to think or act a certain way, and we should absolutely leverage those strengths. But I also kind of believe learned behavior is just as important. So for me, I guess I believe I offer a different perspective to Wilhelm based on a lot of different factors and not just limited to me being the woman at the table.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that answer, Brittany, because it kind of leads into my next question, because you're right, it's not all about your gender, because there's diversity of thought and diversity of perspective and you know, your educational background, your experiences and things like that. So so turning to Jeannie and Phil and Sarah, can you provide us with an example where you saw a diverse team within your company achieve results that you knew wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for that diversity of thought and perspective? Can we start with you, Jeannie?
Most definitely. When I started C.H. Barnett in partnership with Miller Pipeline, there was a need, but also I think over the years, there was a level of trust and confidence in my abilities as an African-American woman. And then once I started the company, it took a couple of years for me to, get my sea legs under me and running my own business. But then I had the opportunity to sit down with the executives at Miller Pipeline, and they have the same thoughts that I did, which kind of helps in being on the same page in that if we could do this for C.H. Barnett, how can we do this for other companies?
Mhm.
And with that being said, they also gave me the task of helping them develop their diversity program. And when they said diversity, they had goals that they had to meet with their other customers. So in sitting down and talking to them, I said, well, we don't just want to meet the goals, we want to exceed the goals. And not only with minority-owned companies, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, disadvantaged businesses across the board, we also start looking at how we could leverage that in having a more diverse workforce by hiring from the communities in which we are working in.
Mhm.
So with that being said, with nearly 8,000 employees now, the numbers have gone up across the board as far as women that they've hired to work in the office, partnering with a flag company in Louisville that's a woman-owned business. So, right now our spend is about 30% with MBEs, WBEs, VBs, DBs, and I don't think that would have ever happened if they had not trusted me in starting CH Barnett.
Yeah, yeah, great perspective. How about you, Phil? Where have you seen the value of diversity of thought and perspective?
No, it's a great question. We had a project a couple years ago. It was a residence hall at Wabash College, and it was an all-male school, an all-male administration, an all-male decision-making team, and an all-male design team. And so we were selected as the construction manager, and Adrian Rhodes was our pre-construction manager. And we had Becky Henderson, we named her as our project manager. And I'd love to tell you that it was because they were female, but it was more availability. But they were assigned to the project, and it was very interesting to watch, because Adrian, she came to me worried about this, and I said, do not back off. Tell them what you think, and it'll make it a better project, and it did. And the same with Becky. But during the design phase, this was an existing building, and they really grilled them about, from a female perspective, what happens if a student's grandmother comes to the residence hall to visit? What do they do? Well, we never thought about that. It's one of those kind of things that input in, and it made it a much better project. And I think without their input, both in the pre-construction side and then Becky's input on the construction side, I think it would have been a failure. And really right now, Adrian is now the head of design and construction at Wabash College. So she grew into that role, and she's doing a great job. So that's a real life example that it changed that project.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example. Thank you, Phil. I appreciate hearing that. How about you, Sarah? Can you give us an example where you saw those dynamics at play?
Sure. So we're a servant leadership based firm, which means it's our goal always that everything we design is tailored to the needs of our clients. I hope that people can't tell what a Schmidt building is, because there aren't any except for our offices, right? They're IU buildings or DePaul buildings or Purdue. And having a diversity of thought at the table means you leave client meetings and everybody heard something just a little bit differently. And that is invaluable to come back and say, wait a minute, I thought I heard this, you thought you heard that. Where really does this client need to be? So for all of our projects, having the different experiences at the table helps to tailor the result. My one, it's just kind of a silly but very tangible example is we came back from a client meeting once, and the client had asked for a nursing room in their office building. And the male partner I was with said, what do you mean? Are they bringing their babies to work every day? No, see, we have a fundamentally different experience with what that room is for and why you need it. But had the women not been at the table to explain and help, the client's needs wouldn't have been met. And it's a little bit of a silly example, but there are 1,000 things like that every day with every project.
Yeah. And I'm sure our members, both in Women in High Tech and Executive Women in Finance, see that no matter what industry they're in, where that diversity of thought and perspective and education all come together to make a better project. And it's good to hear that that happens and is needed in the design and construction industry, once again, because most people think, well, that's an industry where mostly men work, and it's not very diverse. And I guess you're kind of breaking that paradigm for us. So thank you. So now that we know that women have a role to play here, that it's a good place for women to leverage their talent in STEM, let's hear how you're working to fill the pipeline. So Phil, what is Wilhelm doing to recruit women into the field?
I mentioned earlier how we became very narrow in where we were recruiting when we hired all Purdue people. And really, we're now going to all kinds of different colleges and universities to recruit, whether that's Wabash College, University of Indianapolis. We reluctantly go to IU in Bloomington, right, Brittany? So we're diversifying in colleges, not just in Indiana. We're looking at some of their surrounding states we go to get that diversification of views, and whether we're hiring for accounting or operations, it doesn't matter. That's something. And we hire about 20 interns every summer, and in all parts of our company, in marketing, accounting, in the field. And it's really been interesting to watch. And then at the end of the internship program every summer, here in about 2 weeks this year, we get all the interns together and they present what they stand up, present what they learned, and then talk to their peers there about what is it they're going to take back to school. And so and we've had several multi-year interns also. So I think that's the key that I've seen the changes is in how we're running our internship program.
Mm. Yeah, for anyone who has a college student or a high school student struggling where to apply their talents and is looking for an internship, I think from other internship programs I've seen, I think the Wilhelm internship program is really an awesome experience for young people to gain an appreciation for what they do, what it's like to work in construction. So I don't know, Jeannie or Sarah, if you're focused on internships like that, but Sarah, does Schmidt do internships also?
We do internships with every single discipline that we have in-house.
Okay, great.
We normally have 10 interns with different backgrounds, different schools, which they would have to. I mean, you can't go to Purdue, as much as I love Purdue, and be an architect, right? So, but we've got Purdue engineers and Ball State architects and University of Cincinnati, and they're a great little cohort. And then we're trying to get them even earlier than that. We are pretty heavily invested with junior achievement in the design and construction field too, and get them interested in middle school before they get scared of it, so that we can pull them in a bit later.
Yeah. How about you, Jeannie? Do you?
Yes, most definitely. We like to recruit in the finance area, the accounting area. If we can get some students high school age, just to do some minor tasks, but once they hit college, we offer up like 2 to 3 year internships with the opportunity to hire on at the end of your internship. And right now on staff, we probably have about 2 to 3 people who've gone through that program and now working at the company.
Yeah, I know that was a little bit off script, but I think that's an important way to fill the pipeline, because young people who actually can experience it aren't quite as afraid of it once they see what they would be doing and see the people who do it well have fun with it and find it challenging. So that's great. I want to ask a question just around how flexible careers in construction are to Jeannie and Sarah. How has that, the combination of being a mom and working in this field been? Is the industry flexible for the demands of women who work out of the home?
I would say it's extremely challenging. And it took me a while to realize, everybody talked about a work-life balance, No, you have to really strive for a balanced life. And when I say that, it's like, whatever is before me through the day, that's what I'm focused on. And once I had that mindset, it became a lot easier for me. If I had something to do for my children, I would, shift things around to take care of their needs before I could really go back and focus on the needs of the job. Do they clash sometimes? Of course. But you just really have to develop a good support system within your family, your friends. And I tell people in the construction industry that I'm in, you're pretty much working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Are you working all those hours? No. But there are going to be times you're going to get that call late at night or super early in the morning. And you just have to keep that focus on, this is how my life is, and I've got to find the balance in my life. Not a work-life balance. I just have to have a balanced life. And by doing that, everything has always worked out.
Yeah, good to hear, Jeannie. How about you, Sarah? What's your view?
I would agree with Jeannie on that one. I have two teenage daughters. I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old. And when the little one was an infant and I had a toddler, it was Christmas time, we were playing with our little creche, and my oldest daughter marched Mary in and kissed baby Jesus and said, "Bye-bye, baby Jesus, mommy got a meeting," and marched Mary out of the stable. And she's going to tell her therapist that story later, and that's fine. My kids know how to get Netflix on every conference room display monitor we have at Schmidt. I've taken them to board meetings and rocked their little chairs with my foot while I was running a meeting. I think balance, I agree with you, Jeannie, on this too. I think balance is maybe the wrong word.
Yes.
I think it's juggling. It's just knowing which ball is rubber and you can drop it for a minute and it'll bounce back, and which one is glass. My support system has a husband who's an architect as well, and so he's an equal partner in this, but there's been paid help in parents, and it's getting better. I actually think the weird work from home environment that we're in right now has maybe spread the work a little more equitably than ever before. I suspect that is true. But you just got to be flexible and work when you have time to work. I always tell people this too. I do get asked this question all the time. You're like, how do you have it all? And the answer is not at one time. Like, you can have it all, but you cannot have it all at one time. There will be sacrifices made, and you just got to come to peace with that and make your choices as to where to make your changes.
Yeah, excellent perspective. Thank you. And so Melanie and Brittany, we hear a lot about disparity between men and women and who have STEM careers, and there's a perception about salary disparity. I may be putting Brittany on the spot with Phil on the panel, but what's your view on that? Does that exist within the construction industry, or do you feel good about the industry in general? Melanie?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I can answer that question for the industry as a whole. I can tell you from my perspective, I've learned to do a much better job negotiating my salary, but it doesn't help. I mean, it helps the fact that I am a CFO and I have access to all payroll information. So I can make sure that that's happening for myself as well as the other women in my organization. I do think that our bigger issue is that we don't have a lot of women in construction, and it's hard to compare salaries because there's just not enough of us to really look at that. We talked earlier, about 9.9% of the workforce in construction are female, and there's even less in senior level or C-suite roles. So it's hard to even compare. So I think our bigger challenge is doing the recruiting that everyone's talking about, but then also look at how we retain women in the industry so that we can move them up to those senior level positions. And I would say what we're doing today is a huge step in moving it the right direction, because it's really telling our stories and making sure that people understand what construction is really like. So I definitely applaud all of the organizers of this event to really share all of our stories here today.
Thank you, Melanie. Brittany, do you have a view to share on the question?
Yeah, it's very similar. So we talked a lot today about how women have unique perspectives and characteristics and why diversity among teams is necessary. Then we also talked about how less than 10% of the construction field is female. And then Melanie mentioned us from a executive level, but you take out admin, HR, marketing, which are more female dominated discipline, that number gets a lot smaller. So with that disparity in numbers, you always kind of worry if salary disparities are playing a role. So given those statistics, when I started leading the HR department in my CFO role, that was actually one of the first studies we performed. We graphed salaries of various roles and highlighted where the females were positioned on each graph. So in other words, we put all the project engineers' salaries on a graph across the x-axis. We had the pay bands, and across the y-axis, we had number of individuals who fell into them. As expected, we kind of developed our own little bell curve, and the majority of employees were concentrated in the middle, and you had your outliers. And then we highlighted where the females fell on each of those. Now, to Melanie's point, I would have loved to have a whole lot more data points with the females, and I hope seeing people like on this panel get more females into the construction industry. But I think whenever I look at the results of that study, they were very favorable. And I think, frankly, I'd argue that the females were paid more on average than their male counterparts. Now, saying that, let me be quick to say, Phil's certainly not giving anyone additional pay because of their gender. I just think there's something to be said for a female that can fight her way through the construction world when she's one of every 10. I think she's probably a very passionate individual, strong-willed, hardworking. And those traits for me are highly desirable in any business, but I know that certainly at Wilhelm.
Yeah, I know that in order for, I'm a chemical engineer by training, and I know for me to make sure that I was staying on par with peers, I had to be my own advocate, and I had to look at I had to look at the data. I had to know the data from the industry, and I could get it from the AICHE. So there was a way to get the data. And then I had to be my own advocate, because if I found out that I wasn't where the averages were, then I could make a case for myself. And a lot of times the case was that I was getting paid less than a male project engineer at the same level, and some discrepancies had to be corrected. But you know, I'm talking back in the industry, 20, 25 years ago. I hope that dynamic isn't as much at play now, but I know in some places it is. And you have to really know your data, and you have to be willing to go in and say, this isn't right. I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or not, but I'm definitely not where I need to be on this graph, regardless of what my gender is or background is. So I think that's good advice. So, and so in closing, I have one final question. We have a lot of STEM professionals on the phone with us today, or on this webinar today, and who may be interested in pursuing a career in construction. And so what advice would you have for them on how to get started? Jeannie?
I would encourage anyone participating today, network. I can't emphasize that enough. Put yourself out there and volunteer. You would be amazed at how many people you meet through volunteerism. But networking was key for me. It continues to be. key for me in growing my business. So I would strongly encourage anyone, get out there and just network, ask questions, and just develop a strong network of women, men, across various disciplines, and you'll be amazed at where your career will go.
Yeah, that's really good advice, and that's exactly why people like me and Shalise and Nikki, Melanie, Brittany, we're so into women in high tech and executive finance, because it gives us that platform to do that. And so thank you for doing a little marketing for us without us even having to do it ourselves. So Phil, what would you recommend? What advice would you give?
The same thing. Just educate yourself. I mentioned earlier that the industry's done a poor job of educating women about the opportunities, and it can be as simple as calling myself or Brittany, or come over and spend some time at our office and see what the opportunities are in real life, or go walk one of our job sites and see, and maybe something comes to mind there for you that you would be interested in. So again, back to the networking piece, that's key, educating yourself on those things.
Mm-hmm. And Sarah, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, find a mentor, find somebody to talk to. The design field is really broad. We have an entire technology department. We have an entire finance department. We have people who do production, who do design. I've always found Indianapolis to be very open, very welcoming. Nobody I've ever asked to have a mentoring discussion told me no, ever in my career. And they helped me get some clarity around what I was looking for, which is something that we ask of everyone at Schmidt, is to write down your own personal mission statement so that we can see how you fit here. But it takes some mentorship, right, to get clarity around those.
Yeah, very good point. So, well, I'll turn it, Shalise, did we get any questions that haven't been answered through our discussion?
We actually did get a few. I'm not sure if we'll be able to cover all of them, because as expected, we spent a lot of time on great discussion. But for any questions that do go unanswered, we can do a follow-up email with responses to participants after this. The first question we got is directed at Jeannie. My role is with Goodwill Industries, the Excel Center, and it focuses on implementing and scaling high-wage, high-demand industry certification serving adult students. Our network focuses on the NCCER certifications for students to learn core construction skills. What advice would you give to learners, specifically women, on how this entry-level certification leads to a career pathway in the skilled trades?
I would definitely say any type of certifications you get like that will open the door to opportunities. And people forget about the unionized jobs that are still available in this country. So even with that certification, you can become a member of the laborers union, and that will give you an entry-level position in the construction industry to grow from that. And with all the opportunities that are available today, you will see that you could move up very quickly within an organization with that type of certification and with that connection with the unionized position that will pay you great wages and great benefits.
All right, another question, and I'll direct this one at Sarah, but then if anyone else wants to chime in after. When I hear construction, I see safety hats, nails, and safety boots. What is a job in construction really like for women? Examples of roles in construction. I'm thinking of my daughter, friends, and the girls around me.
Yeah, I mean, you're right to think about lots of jobs in construction being about safety hats and safety boots. That's absolutely true. But both design and construction have huge office components too, if that is part and parcel of where your interest lies. So sometimes we say that we run a technology company that does design rather than a design company that has technology, because the tech is so critical to everything that we do, everything that we produce. And I know that's true on the construction side too. The technology advancements mean there's more and more jobs on the technology side, sometimes in the office, and let alone the finance side, the graphic design side. The jobs are much more diverse than the people actually hammering the nail on site. Although it is pretty fun to go out occasionally and hammer a nail when Phil lets me with adult supervision.
Yeah, and that's true, because once you get in the industry and then you realize, well, wow, the analytical work and the statistical analysis and the problem solving that goes on behind the scenes is probably just as important as the quality of work that's going on in the field with people doing the actual physical hammering the nail. So without that back office, thoughtful design work and problem analysis going on, what goes on in the field would be very, very difficult to do well.
I'll also say this to whoever asked the question. I think it is entirely empowering to teach your daughters how to hammer a nail, work a saw, build something. But both of my daughters are perfectly competent in a wood shop because we raised them to be perfectly competent in a wood shop. That you can do both. You can go build the doghouse and then put on your party dress and your heels for dinner. As those things are not mutually exclusive, as it turns out.
Yeah, good point, Sarah.
And another question that kind of ties into what we just discussed, and I'll have Phil answer this one, are what are the skills and or certifications you look for in someone in IT?
In IT, honestly, it's people, mainly people skills, the day-to-day nuts and bolts of understanding IT. The people they get that, but it's how do you deal with people that may or may not have a clue about how to turn on your tablet. How do you integrate different softwares? You've got this design group that's located in California sending things during the night. Those kind of things, and how you deal with an irate owner or somebody like that. So a lot of it is, and in talking to our IT guys, is dealing with people. And so that is a skill set that is critical if you want to get into the technology side of construction, from what I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
We've also had a question kind of regarding COVID. How have issues with COVID brought attention to disparities? With so many people working remotely, is this helping rethink what the work world looks like? I'll kind of open that up to Melanie and Brittany as well, because you guys haven't had a chance to answer a question.
Well, it definitely has put a lot of thought on what we're doing. We've been focusing on remote workforce for a long time because we are in job site trailers. We're at remote locations. My work-life balance requires me to be at Starbucks while my daughter's at swim practice to do a little bit of work. So we've really focused on being efficient and not having to be in the office. Now, with COVID, we were considered essential, so we never really shut things down. We shifted schedules and moved some people to working from home where they don't normally. But yeah, I mean, I think what it did is highlighted maybe some process improvements that we need to rethink, or specifically in accounting, maybe there's some things that are a little bit older thinking, like signing checks, which we typically do. Is there a better way to do that? So I think COVID has not necessarily changed what work looks like, but how are we getting work done? And again, innovating, how can we do it better?
And then the final question, look at that, we're actually going to be able to tackle them all. Go team. And I'll kind of leave this open, but how is the recruitment going, and is it going the same for international grad students right now, especially with kind of the COVID environment?
I'll jump in and say it's really hard. So we do some work, we do some overseas work, including in Pakistan, and it's a very difficult environment to bring over young talent, which we like to do, because again, when you look at that big diversity spectrum, it's good for everybody, and we haven't been able to do that for a while. I'll note that, just add that on to the DACA issues. I will say we have DACA kids here who we value immeasurably. They are talented young people who've been with us for years. And anytime there's a question like that in status, it's a problem for us, because I'll take talent wherever I can find it.
All right, thanks guys. Yeah, with that, those were our questions. Thanks to all the participants for giving us some thoughtful questions at the end.
Yeah, and I appreciate everything you've shared with us today.
Mhm.
Thank you again for all the time and the passion you put into making sure that this was a well-run webinar, because I know you all have day jobs. So this was really, I really appreciate you taking the time to educate our membership like you did today. So with that, we'll punctually end at 1 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.